Hello and welcome to the Halloween edition of 2025 of the Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 218. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plantinap. This is an event that we do week by week that we get together and talk about Plantinap and the ways that we're using it and the challenges that we're having. And we encourage you to attend our Friday meetings and bring something to show and be ready to help with ideas and suggestions for others. We record all of them, put them on YouTube. So out at youtube.com/plantinap, you can get all of these plus more content. And we run this agenda week by week. We always stop and say hello because we're a friendly group. And then after that, we go around the campfire. We do topics like first call and anything submitted in advance. Nothing submitted in advance today. Things that have gotten contributed to our community campfire website, questions that are happening on the community website. And we will stop in at feature request, and there is at least one ghost story. So we'll touch on all those things. But after an hour or so, we go into afterglow. That's where we turn off the recording, raise a virtual adult beverage, and start the weekend. Or at least start it a little bit early anyway. But we do ask that we do hope that you'll engage with us. Jump in, show and tell. You can chat, but we do, this is best when we all participate. You can submit anything that you want in advance that you'd like to talk about, and I'll do a little bit of research if I have time, and then we'll put it on the agenda. It's can be submitted at support@plantinap.com. Hello, one and all.
Hello. Good
Hello.
morning.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Happy Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween to you. All right, we got to blow it up and see where Jerry is.
Good afternoon, Dale. I am in Brasov, Romania. I'm having dinner at the Dracula restaurant on the square in Old Town, and obviously I won't be able to visit the show for its entirety, but I am going to interrupt it for just a minute. Everything's going great. We're on our third day in a few days when we're back in Bucharest, but so far the trip's going well. Dracula's Castle is tomorrow for us, but tonight it's just celebrate my birthday, which is today, by going to Halloween parties all night tonight, and again in Brasov, Romania, which I know all you guys know where that's at, but it's still new to me.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, and glad you checked in with us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wouldn't it? I've checked in stranger places. You know that, Dale. So
I'm not other places,
that's
but I don't know
for
about,
sure.
well, stranger anyway. Glad that
You're
you're
right.
with.
You're right. Well, you guys continue on with your show and enjoy it. And I'll probably check back in during the afterglow, and where we can talk more at that time. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Bye, Jerry. All right. First call. Did anybody bring something you wanted to talk about?
I have something. I've been
Hey, Don.
working on a large project, and I'm getting, first of all, the project is a voter list, basically, for a county. And so all of the people who have registered to vote, and that all is public knowledge, first of all. So the first question I had was security matters, but then, doing due diligence of what's supposed to be public, etc. I didn't have to worry too much about what we're storing on our servers. Everything that is on there is all supposed to be public knowledge, which is great. But displaying it is another thing. The Many of our systems are a little archaic, and people that are in the business of providing some services to counties are not necessarily providing front ends on websites. So that's where we come in, and Plantinap is a major portion of that, and we're showing lists of voters via action grids, uh, and that not only are there voters in the county, but there are a lot of different districts, I think there's 1,000 districts that I'm dealing with in one small county, and I guess every county has the same large number of districts, and for all different, every group draws their boundaries differently, and so everybody has their own map, and so different people fall into different districts, and you got to keep track of them all. And so the mechanism that the company, the county is using, um, who does not have a web-facing component to this, so they are not providing it, but they're providing it to me. We were supposed to do an API, and the API kept failing, and I didn't have an opportunity to fix it. So last week we were talking about it, and a number of folks on the call uh, convinced me, and I firmly believe what they said is correct, that getting the monstrous amount of data, 190,000 voters, and then now that'll grow during the election season. Um, that number needs to come over via an FTP, via just a file transfer. So that was great. Now the trick is, sorry, this is getting long. The trick
No, you're
is
doing great. I'm glad to have with a follow-up. You did a great summary.
Oh, okay, good. So we're getting 190,000 or plus records in a giant, basically a CSV file. It's not CSV, it's separated by pipes and new lines. So, but that's the data. So I started it with pure Plantinap pieces, and uh, I was struggling because I don't really know how to debug some of the components, and the what I was running into was I used a uh, make a list from a CSV source, and just pointed that file, and it ran forever, and it did not seem to stop, and I did not know how to check to see, is it really running. So I guess that's my first question, is using the whole idea was to use the low code components, but it kept failing, and of course, and I was on deadline. So what I did then, after not knowing what to do next, I had to come up with an alternative. I went to my assistant, and we came up with a PowerShell script that broke things down and built the appropriate table, and that ran. It ran a long time, but at least it ran, and it was putting things into a log file along the way. So if there was a problem, I could look at the log file, and it appeared to keep going. And if I was just patient, it worked. So that was great, but it did take a real long time. So I guess that would be where I'd like to start, is how do I know what's going on with a particular action, so that I know that it's working or not working? Is action over, what is the limit to the action tools that we have, so I know not to use a particular tool for a particular solution? Start there, I guess.
Sounds good. Um, so yeah, long running processes are definitely a challenge. These are running in the context of IIS, and at any given moment, IIS can decide to recycle the site and terminate the thread and start over. That can so that can when you design anything that lasts more than a couple of minutes, it can be subject to that. So building something that's resilient and can take up where it left off and things like that. We don't, as uh, from the perspective of, say, a PowerShell, we don't really have a mechanism to say that the PowerShell succeeded or failed or the thread shut down or anything. There is, um, I spent a little time looking at this, and together with our CEO Bogdan, I was looking at there's a event that we have in automation that looked promising, and yet it isn't. It is not a solution for did we get shut down or are we about to get shut down. So given all that, my my tendency would be to try to break down the the content into find a way to break it down into pieces and then process the pieces and and try to process them as efficiently as possible. That's kind of the big overscope. Um, Before I could, and I could go on about, how I might do that, but I want to let you react to that or drive or
I think that's a great idea, frankly. Yes, thank you. I think that's a great idea. And I hadn't thought about it until just the way you said it. If, in fact, you don't know um, if a process, I mean, I'm thinking back to the old days where, you start an FTP of a large file, and back then it wasn't all that large. But you would start the process, and then for some reason it broke. Well, you had to start over again. And this is exactly the same situation. An extremely large CSV source, and it starts running, and it could run for 4 hours, and you never know when it's going to break. Then that's not the solution. The solution is to break up the CSV source into small pieces, and uh, if the effort per row is the same, then it really doesn't matter how you split that up. You split it up into smaller chunks, and then you could run it with tools and be more uh, confident of the success of the small loop. And also because it's a small loop, the odds of the process dying are lower, and if they do, the impact of it dying is smaller. It will just start that piece over again. So I could
so
see that makes sense.
so let's um, take for example a possibility. You mentioned that you've got 190,000 records and at this point and 1,000 district, did you call them regions?
Yes, districts,
Uh,
right.
so, for example, if you were to um, if you're okay, first of all, let's go to the extreme problem. If you were to just point that file to a read CSV create list from CSV action, it's going to choke. You're asking Low-Code to do a humongous task that it'll take a long time to do.
Right.
So one possibility would be to use PowerShell to the split your input by districts or by some other manageable chunks, maybe sets of 10,000. I don't know.
Yep.
But find
Yep.
a manageable chunk, and if that PowerShell reported back a JSON structure that said, "Here are all the things that I created for you," right? So
Hmm.
um, now you could take that's kind of a meta list of um, whether it's 1,000 chunks or 10 chunks or whatever you decide to split it into. If you have all those files there that you could then, excuse me, yeah, if you have all those files there and it's reported back in a JSON, it would be very easy to consume that and to create a queue out of the data that came back. So now you have a table that says uh, we have each row represents a chunk and they have a status of unprocessed, for example. And so now you could set a separate process to read a queue record. Its goal is to process that file as efficiently as possible and then mark it as processed or delete it or whatever you want to do. I would mark it as processed so that you could know that everything got done and report on it if you wanted to. So by doing that, then one just kind of one side note along the way is that you could create in your test data as you're designing this thing, you could create some very small or find some very small districts, or even create one that only has 10 records to it, so that you could do the rest of the process showing that it worked before you before you try to process. I mean, what you don't. I like to fail faster, right? If you
Exactly.
can only if you fail if you only know that you've succeeded or failed when you get 190,000 records read, then your process is going to take longer to design. If you can create 5 batches of 5 records each and successfully process all those, then you can start trying to process the bigger batches, right? And
Makes
then
sense.
and then beyond that, if you're are you so now for each of these 190,000 rows, are you creating a record in SQL that you're then going to point action grid to that?
Exactly. Um, there's a couple of things. Yes, the ultimate is that all the voters are now in SQL, and then visitors come to the site and say, "Show me the voter list," and there it is. It's using Action Grid to show that.
Right. So when you get to the spot where you're processing that smaller chunk, the ideal thing would be to try to do that in bulk, right? Versus if you create a list of even if it's 1,000 things, not 190,000 things. If you create a list and do a for each uh, action over that, it's going to be 1,000 inserts, and it's relatively slow. Versus if you read the list in and create a JSON, and I think we have a low-code cafe or that kind of deals with these bulk things. We can find it and point you to it. But if you create a list that has 1,000 entries and then convert that list to JSON, SQL can take that huge JSON as an input and say and do a bulk insert with it. And so that 1,000 records might only take uh, 5 seconds or 10 seconds. It could be very, very quick to process that. And so now all of a sudden you've got you might have 1,000 different districts, but each district is going in chunk, 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 and within you'll have visibility into the process, and B, it'll happen much faster than what you trying to do it one by one, if that's what you were trying.
Right, right, exactly. And my assistant did tell me that, but I was very, very deep into the process by then.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a column in the list, the FTP file, one of the columns in the CSV, is a list of districts that this voter belongs to. So
Hmm.
instead of having uh, a column for every district, 1,000 columns with a Boolean yes or no, it
Oh, yeah.
has it has a list of 20 maybe that they're in, and they it is just a comma separated list. So what my first attempt did was, and I shouldn't take credit for it, what my assistant came up with was to do a split array and uh, uh, process the list, and then from there, I need to generate export files. I don't need to, but generating an export file on 190,000, you know how when you have an action grid and you select, you do some filtering, and then you hit the export link. Um, it takes a little while, and if it's 190,000 records, it's going to take a long time for the user to just sit there. But
Hmm.
the data never it doesn't change all day. So my thought was I would just build all the export files once in the entry process at night, in the middle of the night. I'll build all of those combinations because people ask for, I would like just this district's worth of voters, please. So I'm building those export files and storing them on site. It took 4 hours to do that with the split array thing. And then I said, well, wouldn't there be an easier way of doing that if I just at one point ran through the 190 records and then built junction table of voter and district. And that went from 4 hours to 15 minutes to
Hmm.
process that, to build those things. So surprisingly, the technique that you use in SQL is going to make a drastic amount. The input
Absolutely.
itself made a, and to your point about doing bulk inserts, the first pass was individual inserts, and it was taking forever, and I stopped the process, and then we went in and started doing batches of like 90 of them. I think 95 was the most that I could do because of the thousand um, thousand element limit. It's SQL or something. I don't know what the exact thing was, but the insert string was getting too big. So batches of 95 did the job.
Um, so uh, that kind of brings me to another, just to a feature, and I'm not sure if you know about it, and others following along behind might um, be interested too. In the core Plantain app functionality, there's this there's related entities, and so, for example, if you have a book, you might each book might have chapters, and you can make a list of chapters. And so this is a separate entity that is designed to be connected to, and so there is this join table um, uh, with the primary entity. So, for example, if you had voters and districts, you could have this join table that is voter in the district, and so that relate the. I guess I'm just saying there's a kind of a built-in functionality that you don't have to invent if you want to use it, that will do that. And there, sounds like you're well on your way, and not worth backing up for. You've got that. But the join table is definitely the good idea.
Well,
I,
that brings up an interesting point. Yes, I understood about that, and it's a great idea to post that as part of this talk for anyone watching later, because that is a cool thing. The problem is that I originally started using things like I first built an entity for the voter, and then I built an entity for the district, and I was going to do putting a list in there to tie them together. And I have done that in the past with other projects. But I started by just pulling in the data and was going to. Um, I had just a text field for that list, and I was going to break that up and do that later. But I couldn't get the data input. So then when I shifted over to a PowerShell script, I just had it create the table, and at that point, the idea of using entities and some of the built-in tools disappeared. So I didn't use any of the
okay.
built-in tools. I just created a SQL data table out of PowerShell and have been going that way ever since. Now, your point about not having or point about using the tools and not going backwards, I very well might. I'm just learning all of what the client wants, and this is another great example for folks coming along behind. When you have a project and the customer doesn't know the scope of the project, they explain it as best they can, but they forget a bunch of things, and you've never done this kind of project, and so you don't know. Sometimes you have to run through it, get something that's working, and say, okay, now that it's all there, this is not the way to do it.
Hmm.
So that's where I'm at right now. I'm in fact talking with them this afternoon. Now that I know what the data is that they actually have, they were displaying it in one way, but it was because that's all they knew how to do. Now that I know all of the parameters, now I'm going to suggest a couple of different other techniques. Like, for instance, using an action grid to display that junction table of districts and show the number of voters per district, which is something that they didn't have before. But I think that that would be a very valuable thing for them to see,
Yeah.
and the general public to see. And that is a simple SQL, a very simple SQL with a couple of joins, as opposed to breaking that list apart with a split array function, and it and build it, and then from there I can have them view individual people and other things from that action grid, which we didn't know before. So now we may very well want to do it differently, and this is the point where I may very well go in and rebuild this with entities and let the tools do the job. And maybe the PowerShell script will do nothing more than split up the large source so that I can do it in chunks.
So, um, two thoughts. I think you hit on something that is really key, that um, it's possible, whatever the tool is that you're using, it's possible to design things that are efficient or inefficient. And the bigger the numbers you're dealing with, or whether it's size of records or number of records or both, the bigger the problem, all of a sudden it will reveal the that you've done it inefficiently, right? So um, things, I mean, if you're working with 100 records that have 5 fields that are text, doesn't matter how you do it, it's gonna be so fast you don't care. But so anyway, it's possible to use our tool in such a way that it's not going to make you happy, right? So finding an efficient way to do it is incumbent. And then to your just a kind of a tip about, if you decide that you are going to rebuild it and you design entities, one of the techniques that I use all the time is, if you come in here to the SQL, I am sharing my screen, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay. If you come in here to the SQL console and, for example, use this get column schema on any table, that puts it in your clipboard, which you can then paste anywhere. I've pasted it here. It's not really a query, but it shows the name of the table and all the columns. And if you tell your assistant about this information, you could say, I have this, I've designed this entity called voters, and this is what it looks like. And then um, we, in my case, I'm talking about chapters, books and chapters. So there's this entity called chapter, and so you could get the column schema for that. And the join table that gets created automatically when you do use the list of structure is book, chapter, chapters. That's the primary entity and the secondary entity. And so you can get that structure as well. So by providing those three pieces of information to your assistant, um, that instead of letting them design a table that you're then creating or it created, that you instead say, this is what I have, use these. And that it's giving it enough information that it'll be able to sort that out for you.
Interesting point. I think that's a great idea. That way, the important thing here is that then I can build the entity, I can build the table using entities in Plantinap. Let Plantinap do all of that, and then any other benefits with grids, etc. Instead of providing
Right.
a SQL, I can say go and display an entity and all of that thing. Um, the only not concern, but question I have then is, one of the techniques was that since you're doing all of these very large numbers of records, you can shut it off for how many hours it is for them to process, to get, to refresh all of this every night, and then nobody can touch it during that time. Or you can build all of this in a staging table and then do a rename, which is what it came up with
Hmm.
to solve that problem. Can I do a rename with an entity? Will that screw things up? Are there
I
other
think it will screw things up. I
internal?
wouldn't do it.
Right.
Uh, but there's I think there are solutions to that, whether it's uh, whether it's having shadow entities that you then bulk copy, bulk copy, which would then be it would be down for a period of time, 5 minutes, but not all the full processing time. Another technique would be to have to use the exact same tables with statuses where you just uh, flip things live. But yeah, I'm not. I've never experienced trying to rename the plant and app generated tables, so I would expect there to be problems.
That makes sense.
Uh,
Okay.
and while we're talking about big data things too, um, just remember that sometimes you'll get tremendous benefit from adding SQL indexes to tables if it's not doing that for you already. And which kind of segues into with our entities, if you choose filterable or sortable, those automatic just by turning on these flags, either one of the flags, it will create a index for you automatically. And if you um, so at, if whichever direction you're going, suitable indexes might also speed up the processing time.
Great. There's several other questions, but I've already taken up half the show, so we don't want
Well,
to do
but even before that, if anybody's been listening patiently and thinking that Dale's an idiot, and what about now's the time.
that.
All right, good. Well, it sounds like a fun project to bite into. So, um, and you learn so much from going down those roads and then saying, "Oh, that's not going to work." So,
Well, I do need to redo it after all because of the FTP thing. Um, I'm trying to push some of it back onto the other company to say, don't give me 190 records in one batch.
mm,
FTP would be great, but they don't seem to have a mechanism to do that. But they do want an API because they can then do it programmatically with a cron job type of thing on their side. And so I do still need to, create entities and an API so that I can take the information in. I'm trying to figure out if I can take the information in and then modify records from what they give me rather than just redo the whole site every night. So that's still an open discussion.
that's an. I was gonna kind of poke at that a little bit too. That it sounds like I'll bet only a fraction of that information is changing day by day.
Yeah,
So
once you have a registered voter, you're not moving, it doesn't change. So uh, I would imagine maybe 5% of it changes at best.
and so you might gain something by a process, your PowerShell that says this was yesterday's file, this is today's file, distill the changes for me. And so now all of a sudden you're processing 5,000 on any given day, not 190,000. So I think there are solutions to that, but it's going to take some thought. All right. Did anybody else have a first call, or do you have another first call?
Well, I don't know. No, no.
I just comment on to Don that I think you're doing the right thing by pushing back. I think that putting it all on you is and just say, here's the dump, you deal with it. Seems like a lot. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
just thinking those same words as I was saying the last thing we were just talking about is, yeah, thanks, Patrick. I agree. It's you guys, I think they can probably see what changed on their side. So just
Hmm.
send me the changes. And frankly, I think the changes really, I mean, the districts aren't changing daily. The people aren't moving. Once they say they're a registered voter, they are. So the only thing is who to take out, who to add in. Really, I think maybe one or two changes. Somebody says, "Oh, you've got my name spelled wrong," but that may be it. So why
Hmm.
not have them give me the differences now that they've given me the bulk?
And you still, you'll need that bulk load as well for the first time,
Right.
or to refresh it if you have any concerns of it being, so of not getting the changes or whatever. But then, um, yeah, dealing with lower numbers later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sounds like a really fun project. All right. I'm going to move on to a few things, but I'm always happy to go where you want to go in this. On 2 days ago, we did the Discover What's Possible, the tour of listing controls in Plant an App. I don't know if any of you attended that, but um, in preparing for that, I found a few things in there that I either forgot about or never knew about. So I thought that was I thought it was a fun one. It was certainly easy for me to just go through it and do it. Did anybody see that? Did anybody watch the video yet? Or find anything you didn't know? I'm gonna try and
I I was there, and to support you and everything, but I have to you know be very honest and say I didn't pay complete attention the entire time because it was a lot. There was a lot of stuff that that I've known for a very long time. So, but I
well,
think it was a great to do that for people who don't have that much experience with listings to know that stuff. It's good.
this is an area that our documentation is short to, and I intend to use the time I've invested to now come up with some better
Excellent.
documentation. But just scrolling through the um, exact search, inexact search was one that I had forgotten about, and so that's kind of useful. Um,
It's relatively new too, isn't it? It hasn't always been there, I don't think.
I don't know. Row tooltip. Um, Not only did I think it's a useful feature, but I also, when I tried it the first time, I had a icon that wasn't rendering, and so I thought it was a broken feature. And it turns out that if you pick an icon that's really there, then the feature works just fine. Um, Most of these are pretty strict. Most of these I think we use all the time. Does anybody I haven't explored yet debug mode. I mean, it says what it's going to do. Has anybody ever had cause to use this? Probably just something that we do. It's possible for support, but I haven't ever seen the output. Anyway, so hopefully that will serve somebody one of these days.
Not directly related, but somewhat related to what you were saying. I just wanted to let you know that uh, on our testing site, when I upgraded to the version of 1.27 that includes the reintegration of the tabs, you know, tabs
Mhm.
with listings, I took our our contact detail page for our internal management of the contacts in our system. Um, has probably 7 or 8 tabs, and every single one of those tabs has a listing, and some of them have multiple listings. Um, I was able to compare between our testing site and our production site after I enabled the option to refresh grid when tab is activated on all the listings that were appropriate to do so with that. I would on the testing site, the page loaded noticeably faster. It was a great improvement. So just wanted to share that having that back in the product is a great thing.
Absolutely. To be able to just defer it, I mean, they're hidden anyway. So to be able to defer it until you really want to go look at it.
And I'm sorry, I said the wrong setting. I meant the load when tab is activated setting. That's what I enabled on all of them. So that just clarifying that for anybody who might be listening later,
Yep.
so that the listing isn't loaded at all until the tab becomes active. Really makes a big difference.
Behind the scenes, I mean, it has to run whatever if it's a SQL, but or whatever the data source is, it has to run it. And so whatever time it takes and CPU energy it takes. And so, imagine if you have something on a tab that you're not looking at, and yet everybody that goes in, it generates yet another SQL query. So it's performance for the individual user not having to wait on that, but it's also performance on the server as a whole
Mm,
that you're not asking questions that you don't care about the answers to.
yeah.
So good, thanks for that. I agree. That was and this was one of those that we just never implemented in Bootstrap 5. Is that right?
Yeah, I
Originally?
think that's what it
So
was.
it was a long-standing, well-used feature that just didn't make it for since what version 118 until now. So missing in action for several years. It obviously doesn't prevent applications from running, but it did have an impact on performance.
What version did that become re-enabled in the product, you know?
Probably 1.26.
Uh,
Okay.
no, I think it's in 127. I think it's a hotfix in 127, I believe. Might be wrong about that, but that's what I.
Let me do a quick, well, I don't know if anything's quick, but I'll try. Uh, Missing integration between Tabs Pro and listings in BS5. It did come to the top, and the fix was in 27. So Action Grid version 527.96 and Tabs Pro 527.30. So yes, if you install the hotfixes in 527, you'll get this. And then you just need to turn it on. It's pretty easy to implement once it's there.
So I just was actually playing with that. I just happened to be working with a screen with a bunch of grids. And if you turn that on, uh, when the grid shows by default, it actually doesn't show the grid.
Right. If the grid is not that I did notice that if your grid is not in a tab,
Yeah.
um, and you turn that on, you don't get your grid. That might be
Probably not
something
the
that
behavior we want.
yeah, that could be something that maybe Dale, I think it could be fixed, but it's not. I mean, I figured it out pretty quickly. I was like, what
Yeah.
happened to that? What happened to that listing? And I realized, oh,
Mhm.
because there were so many listings on the page I was working on, I was just going through each one and enabling it, and I enabled it for one that wasn't actually in a tabs module. And when I did that, the listing disappeared from the page.
Uh, to that end, this I mean, just in the interest of preventing a ghost story, right? I know there have been times when I have moved a listing outside of a grid to work
Mm,
on it. And if you move it outside of a grid and this was turned on, it would disappear. if unless there's nuances that I don't understand, it would. I mean, if what you're saying is perfectly accurate, then just moving it outside the listing, it would disappear, and that would be annoying. So
Moving it outside the tabs module.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
moving
yeah,
it
yeah,
outside the tabs
yeah.
module. Keep
Right.
me
Yeah.
honest. So yeah, um, and so that sounds like something that would be fixable. That we wouldn't do that. So that's probably, tell you what, I will make a note about that. Actual paper and pencil.
Real quick question about that. Is there a quick tutorial on using the tabs? I frankly have not used them. I just realized, especially what we were just talking about, that there would be a very nice use for tabs in a listing for these voter things, but I've not used it before.
There isn't a tutorial that I'm aware of, but it's real easy, and I'd be happy
Hmm.
to undertake it if there's not a without objection so ordered, right? Um, when you create an entity and you look at the details, it automatically puts a tab on a page. So there's a place that you can look at to see an example of it anyway.
And
Um,
if you do a connection to another entity, then you get a tab with a listing on it as well.
right. So
Yeah.
let's switch back to my normal test system and we'll look at books because it's already going to be there. Thank you, Patrick. So um, the same favorite one that we have, book. I'm just going to use this view page and new tab icon so we can find it without having to navigate the menu structure. But this has that link to chapters, so we're going to see the default way that Clinton builds this. So we have books, and then it has chapters. And I'm clicking in on that to our. So this detail page has a good example of one, so you can build one and see it at work done.
Hmm?
But behind the scenes, what it's doing is it's adding a tabs control. And if we open it up, um, you can define as many tabs as you want, and you could add your own custom tab. So I'm going to add a custom tab here. But what's on each tab is uh, the main thing is what modules would you like to appear within the tab. So we have a tab called details, and uh-oh, that's a bug.
That's still
Ignore
there.
that. I hadn't seen that one. You
Yeah.
acted like you've seen it before.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
Okay.
been there. And it might be just because um this entity is old. Because I feel
It
like we,
it
yeah,
it is a very old entity,
yeah.
so we probably should have stayed away from this. But when you pick a uh, when you add a tab, so you've got the new tab button. When you add a tab, then you look. This gives you a list of all the modules that are present on your page, and you can pick which ones should appear there. So very simply, if we add, this would be a typical way to use tabs. You would add I'm going to put this into edit mode and I'm going to add an HTML module to the page. But whatever kind of module, doesn't matter. We'll add an HTML module. And we got to put it someplace, doesn't matter where we put it. And we'll configure it. So we'll do an edit content. And we'll make this be big and save. So we've just got any kind of content that you have. It could be an action form, action grid, an easy DNN, whatever you have, but it's appearing somewhere on your page. And I suppose to get the full experience, we'll also edit the settings and give the content a name. So it's instead of the default text HTML, we're going to say custom 01. I don't care what it's called, but you'll see this in just a second. So now this module appears on your page. It has a name or a title. And so we can go into a tabs module and add a new tab that is, we can call it custom tab just for illustration, but we can select that we want custom 01 to appear inside of it. And it's as simple as that. When we refresh the page, that module will no longer appear there. I'm going to get out of edit mode here so we don't see the chunk, but and so now there's a tab, and when you click there, you get the module.
Very simple. So that makes perfect sense. So the tab module is a module that's in the module list. So if I wanted to do this from a blank page, I
Yep.
would create I put the tab module in there, and then I would just add modules. So if I have 3 tabs for 3 different grids, I would put 3 different grid modules on the page, one after the other, and then I'd go to the tab module and say I want this tab to have this module, this tab to have this module, this tab to have this module, and it's done.
Yep.
Fantastic.
So it's called avt.tabs pro when you do an add module. And in terms of the settings, we can just kind of touch on a couple of the other things that are there. I'm going to stick with this one. So the main thing is select module. If you put multiple modules on the page, you can stack them horizontally or vertically. So typically, vertical just means the grids are gonna, if you have grids, but whatever you're putting there is going to be one on top of the other, but you can get a horizontal layout as well. Only one tab can be defined as the default tab. So when you browse to the page, it's going to go there. Tabs can have conditions for show and enable. So you can have an administrative tab, for example, that you only show to people in that role. Something like that. You can put an image up in the tab as well as this title is going to appear, but you could have an image as well in CSS and things like that. And you can show it, but then you can enable it conditionally. So if you want it to be there, but not usable by somebody, they can see it, but they can't get there. You can block that out as well. Some of the fun stuff that happens with tabs, see how up in the top line, if I pick custom tab, we have the hashtag showing up there versus if I'm on chapters, it shows that. So then the hyperlink, if you use this hyperlink, you can send people to a page that has the appropriate tab selected by using the same structure. So that's the 20,000 foot version.
Fantastic.
Don't be afraid of it. Give it a try on a private page. Let's see. What did I do? Yep. Okay. Good. So, community forum, there's a few posts on there. I don't know that there's There was one that was kind of interesting to me, so I thought maybe it's worth going to take a look. I mean, it might be one that's interesting to you, but so Jerry was asking about sticky headers, and that's a feature that's I mean, it's not a feature of the product, but it is something that there's a Campfire contribution for. But this question that came from Brandon about redirecting to multiple pages, I was wondering if there was ever any, if anybody's ever done this, any of you on the call, basically you want to redirect a user to two different pages. Uh, Easy to redirect them to one. Didn't know if anybody's done it to multiples. It appears might be possible with some JavaScript. We don't provide it as an out-of-the-box thing, but anyway, seemed like an interesting case. Sounds like something that browsers might try to prevent, though, as well. Like, if you've ever browsed to a page, it seemed like it happened more in the early days of the internet that you'd get a page that would open 1,000 windows, and so I could see that they might not want to let you open more than one tab at a time.
I think that I probably would go with I'd probably play with Mark's idea if I was trying to do this. Just open the one page and then have something that opens the next one there.
Makes sense.
I guess, and if it doesn't always happen, pass something along on the URL string that tells it whether it should or not.
Yep. That does definitely, if the that does seem like a solution that would reliably work and not count on. I mean, even still, tabs can get denied by the browsers. I've had to click the yes, I'll allow this for that kind of thing before, which seems weird. Most of the time it just works, and then all of a sudden it's like, where's my tab? Oh, well.
I think Ben has an idea.
Well, let's see if he does.
I had to find the unmute button. Um, I have done this in the past. I don't use it anymore, so I can't reliably say if it's still functional because it was a couple of years ago that I did this. Um, the client didn't need this feature anymore, but in JavaScript there is a function called set timeout. So you can, if you set multiples of those timeouts, set it so that it can open up multiple tabs, because all you'd have to do is basically open up the tab with its target being underscore blank. That forces a new tab to pop open. But if you do it within a set timeout, so for example, you load up the page and then you want 3 tabs to open. If you set one to, let's say, 250 milliseconds and 300 milliseconds and 350, then you'll have 3 tabs pop open. They'll just open up successively, like not instantly. There'll be a smidgen of a delay for each.
Well, I think that's an excellent idea. I'll bet it would work. All right. Anything else we cannot live without? I've done another update on special lists and tokens in the documentation. This is well, I want to point out there's a known bug that we're going to work out, but this action grid entry should be the things that are after search and filters are applied. And there's a known bug that if you don't have sync with URL turned on, that it's everything, not the search and filters. So just to know about that until we get the bug fixed. because it's gonna change the functionality of action grid entry. And I promised a ghost story, so what was it? This isn't Campfire Contributions. Just wanted to point out very quickly that I've added one, but it's the version check software, or what we now call our health check. But it's for versions 128 onward. You guys don't have that yet, so you can't take much advantage of it. But the version numbering changed, and so we had to change that workflow. It's a different one. We'll talk about feature requests next time because there's been several that have been added that are good ones. And yeah, I had a ghost story just this morning that, and I just, Halloween, you got to talk about a ghost story. But I had a client with a listing, and he had a column added to the listing. He had filterable turned on, and the filter was showing up at the top, but the value wasn't being displayed in the column, and that was really weird. And I removed the column and re-added it, and it worked. So I don't know. Somehow that column, the configuration of that column must have gotten damaged, and I don't really know how, but didn't know if anybody had ever experienced that.
No,
Yeah, I've had that happen before and did exactly the same thing, and it worked fine.
Probably underneath the covers, if we did a compare file on the configuration, there would be some nuance of change that, but there must be a sequence of clicks that you can do that causes some kind of a corruption in that, which is weird. So thanks for confirming that. All right, we've hit our hour and plus, so I will say happy low coding. We will get together and do this same event next. And I stopped the share early, but hang around for Afterglow, and we will, if you're inclined, we're going to turn off the recording here in just a second. Thanks, everyone.